Good day, everyone. Today, we will discuss Chapter 8, El Filibusterismo. Meet my groupmates. I am Ruth Magno. Next is Miss Zaira Pizarra. Third is John Philip Palmero. And last is Arvin Hambalos. The topics that we will discuss are the writing and printing of Philly, Filibustero and Gumbursa, themes of Philly, Nolly versus Philly, synopsis, Nolly and Philly stolen, and last is the novel's legacy. El Filibusterismo. El Filibusterismo is Jose Rizal's second novel written as the sequel of his Noli Me Tangere. It is commonly nicknamed El Fili or simply Fili. It was written also in Spanish, like his first novel, Noli. Its commonly known English alternative title is The Reign of Greed. So ito yung copy ng first page ng manuscript ng book ng El Filibusterismo. The first topic is the writing and printing of Philly. In October 1887, Rizal started writing El Filibusterismo in Calamba during his first homecoming. So at this date, he began writing his novel in Calamba. In 1888, he continued working on it in London, making some revisions. He made some changes in the plot and revised the chapter already written. Rizal then went on to write the novel in Paris and then in Brussels, where distractions were less and the cost of living was cheaper. He wrote more chapters in Paris, Madrid, and Biarritz. Being able to focus on finishing the book, Rizal had finally completed it by March 29, 1891 in Biarritz. So it took almost 4 years to finish his novel. The novel was written against the background of threats and oppressions he and his family suffered because of the Noli and the so-called Calamba agrarian trouble. Jose Alejandrino. Owing to his limited funds, Rizal lived in a cheap boarding house with him as roommate. So si Jose Alejandrino ay roommate ni Rizal sa Belgium. He was the one who looked for a printing press for El Fili. He delivered proofs and revisions to F. Mayor van Loo in Ghent. For his assistance, binigay ni Rizal ang El Fili's corrected proofs and the pen used doing the corrections. Unluckily, these historical souvenirs were either lost or destroyed during the Revolution. Alejandrino, who later became a general in the Philippine Revolution. He might have possibly been the first person to read the novel aside from the author. So ito si Jose Alejandrino. However, the honor of being called the savior of the Philly had gone to Valentin Ventura. He was Rizal's friend who partially financed the novel's publications, the same way that Viola shouldered the expenses of Noli Me Tangere. So si Valentin Ventura ay tinaguriang tagapagligtas ng Elfili. So ito si Valentin Ventura. Initially, Rizal financed Elfili's printing by pawning his properties. In a letter to Jose Basa dated July 9, 1891, he related, "For the past 3 months, I have not received a single centavo. So I have pawned all that I have in order to publish the book. I will continue publishing it as long as I can, and when there is nothing to pawn, I will stop. El filibusterismo." No date. So he pawned his jewels in order to pay the down payment and early partial payments during the printing of the novel. Rizal became desperate because his funds were running low. Rizal's next letter to Basa carried the sad news that the printing had to be suspended for lack of funds. At this point, Valentin Ventura came into the picture. Ventura offered him financial help. In hindsight, we can assume that Ventura was bothered by his conscience, hence his generous monetary assistance for Rizal's novel. Remember that Ventura was one of the Filipinos who promised to co-author Rizal's proposed first book but ended up contributing nothing. But even with Ventura's help, Rizal found a way to fundamentally shorten the novel by erasing 47 whole pages from the 279-page manuscript to save expenses. September 1891, the printed Elfili came off the press, turned out comprising only 38 chapters, compared with the 64 of Dinoli, contrary to his original plan to make a longer sequel. For Ventura's salvific act for partially financing Elfili's publication, Rizal gave him the novel's original manuscript, a pen, and an autographed printed copy. In 1925, the Philippine government bought the Elfili manuscript from Ventura for a large sum of 10,000 pesos. The next topic is filibustero and gomburza. Gomburza is an acronym denoting the surname of the priest Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora. The filibusterismo in the novel's title is derived from the simpler term filibustero. Rizal defined the word filibustero to his friend Ferdinand Blumentritt, who encountered but did not fully comprehend the word in the Noli. Rizal thus explained in a letter, El Filibusterismo, 2011. So ito yung letter. The word filibustero is little known in the Philippines. I heard it for the first time in 1872 when the tragic execution of the Gumbursa took place. I still remember the panic that this word created. Our father forbade us to utter it, as well as the words Cavite, Burgos, one of the executed priests, etc. The Manila newspapers and the Spaniards apply this word to one whom they want to make a revolutionary suspect. The Filipinos belonging to the educated class fear the reach of the word. It means a dangerous patriot who will soon be hanged or well, a presumptuous man. So, ina-apply ng Spaniards ang salitang filibustero sa nais nilang gawing revolutionary suspect. Kahit ang mga Filipinong edukado ay nangangamba sa salitang ito. The word filibustero contextually means subversive, dissident, revolutionary, seditious, insurrectionary, and treasonous. Fittingly, Rizal dedicated the book to the memory of the Gumbursa, the three Filipino patriotic priests who were accused of being filibustero and thus executed. In his dedication, Rizal fearlessly declared his conviction that the Spanish officials' treatment of the priest case was unjust, as their complicity in the Cavite Mutiny is not clearly proved. The dedication partly reads, "To the memory of the priest, Don Mariano Gomez, 85 years old, Don Jose Burgos, 30 years old, and Don Jacinto Zamora, 35 years old, executed in the Bagumbayan field on the 28th of February, 1872. I have the right to dedicate my work to you as victims of the evil which I undertake to combat. El filibusterismo, no date. Executed in the Bagumbayan field on the 28th of February 1872. So ito yung sinabi ni Rizal sa kanyang dedication. Pero ang tama ay ito. During their martyrdom on the 17th of February 1872. So the date of their execution is February 17, not February 28. About sa ages ng mga priest, ito yung sinabi ni Rizal. To the memory of the priest Don Mariano Gomez, 85 years old, Don Jose Burgos, 30 years old, and Don Jacinto Zamora, 35 years old. So ito yung tama. Gomez was then 73, not 85. Burgos was 35, not 30 years old, and Zamora was 37, not 35 years old. Rizal, however, made mistakes in indicating the ages of the priest and the date of their execution. Like many other students today, especially men, Rizal was perhaps not that good in memorizing historical details like dates and ages. The foreword of the Fili was nonetheless addressed to the Filipino people and their government. The original manuscript also included a warning and an inscription on the title page written by the author's friend Ferdinand Blumentritt. The two features that didn't appear in the printed book are foreword and warning. These two were not put into print, evidently to save printing cost. Foreword appears just before the dedicatory page in the manuscript. It is for the Filipino people and the government. Warning found on the other side of the dedication. The title page of El Filibusterismo contains an inscription written by Ferdinand Blumentritt.
Now let us move on to the themes of El Filibusterismo. As we all know, El Fili is the sequel novel of Noli Me Tangere. So, what is this all about? This novel gave an imagery of the Filipino society at the hands of Spanish authorities. So, how does the Filipino society in Spanish era? This is when the friars abuse and discriminate Filipinos. So it is heartbreaking to think that these colonizers or these people na salta sa ating bayan uh, belittled the Filipinos and make their lives miserable. Next, it also depicts the socio-political issues that is also dealt in Noli Me Tangere. So what are these? First is the abuses and hypocrisy of the friars or the Spanish Christian clergy. So they want to be dominant, but they are submissive to their desires and interests, resulting to cruelty. So they also abuse their power, discriminate people, Aside from that, they are subjective and they lack justice. So back then, if you have nothing, if you have no wealth or no connection with big names, then you are nothing. Uh, they won't have an interest with you unless you will be a feed, or you will be the instrument to feed their evilness. Then at some point, they teach Filipinos about some sort of religious beliefs. But in reality, it is a superstition lamang. So this is another socio-political issue. Superstitions disguising as a religious faith. Then the need for reform in educational system. In educational system, the question is, are they really educating their students properly? Obviously not, because they don't want the Filipinos to see their hidden agendas or their bulok na sistema sa pamamalakad sa Pilipinas. Yan. They don't want the Filipinos to realize what's wrong with their governance in the Philippines. The exploitation and corruption. So they rob the citizens. Like, they charge large amount of taxes. Ayan, mahirap na, mas pinapahirap pa. That's their happiness. Para masunod ang mga luho nila, nagpapataw sila ng matataas na amount ng mga tax. Then the pretenses of social climbing Filipinos and Spaniards. Then the rebellion. In El Fili, Simon, driven with anger, he rebelled. His plans were equipped by his rage to the Spaniards or the friars. However, in the ending chapters, it implies freedom without bloodshed. So, in which the author is against with unprepared or disorganized rebellion, especially uneducated people will join. So, he believed that it has a low chance of victory. So, at this point, Jose Rizal is, or the author is being thoughtful to his fellow citizens, to his fellow Filipinos. So, yun, na-depict yung kanyang ugaling yun sa kanyang novel. Next topic is the Noli versus Fili. Since these two novels are connected, they have similarities, but they have a lot of differences pa din. So, what's with these two? They are similar primarily in their author, of course, Dr. Rizal. Another, the two novels enunciates how Spaniards abuse and discriminates Filipinos. And the anti-clerical and anti-Catholic. So, this is not literally the Rizal is against with the Catholicism. He's not against with the religion. What he opposed is the ruling or the governance of the Spaniards to the Philippines. As to their differences, Noli is a Latin title that means touch me not in English, while Fili is a Spanish title, and in English, The Reign of Greed. Noli Me Tangere is a romantic novel. It is lighter than Fili. It depicts beauty. It has mercy, humor. So the main character is idealistic and patient. It also tackles the cruelty and exploitation of the Spaniards. And in Fili, it is a political novel associated with revenge and anger. It is more serious than Noli Me Tangere. So this Fili, aside from revenge and anger, it has hatred, pain, bitterness, sorrow, because this novel is dedicated to Gumburza. So this is the gloomier depiction of a country in which society, or in which it encourages rebellion. So here, Rizal's revolutionist side showed, where the society is urged to open its eye for reality. So it made Filipinos crave for freedom against the Spanish government. So, in Noli naman, the reformist side of Rizal revealed, wherein society is encouraged to ask and aspire for liberation. Okay, and that's how Noli and Fili differ from each other.
The synopsis of El Filibusterismo. First of all, we will know that El Fili is the continuation or part 2 of Noli Me Tangere. So it is expected that there are characters from Noli also part of El Fili. So the story of El Filibusterismo revolves around its main character Simon, an affluent jeweler with a real name Crisostomo Ibarra. So mula sa pagkakaligtas at pagtakas ni Crisostomo mula sa kamay ng mga Kastila, ay lumipad siya patungong Cuba at doon nanirahan, nagpayaman at gumawa ng bagong pangalan. And after nes bumalik siya sa Pilipinas sa katauhan na mag-aalahas na si Simon. And dahil sa galing sa politics, that's why he becomes very influential to Spanish officials. But Simon's come to the Philippines just because of two main reasons. The plan to take revenge against the Spanish officials and to rescue Maria Clara from the convent. So para masimulan ang kanyang paghihiganti, so he created or initiated a revolution against the Spaniards. Then he smuggles arms and looks for new followers. And one of his new recruits is Basilio, the son of Sisa, and he also make alliance with the revolutionary group of Cabezang Tales. And he also encourages corruption, decadence, and more oppressive government policies so that the citizens may become more infuriated. So ginawa niya ito sa mga government officials upang mas lalong magalit ang mga Pilipino sa kanila nang sa gayon mas marami pa siyang mahikayat na umanib sa kanyang paghihimagsik. But their first plan na pag-atake was interrupted because of Maria Clara's death. Some months later, they prepare another plan. At the venue of wedding reception of Juanita Pilaes and Paulita Gomez, Simon plants many explosives. Dito nila napiling simulan ang pag-atake because some of the guests ay priors and government officials. And according to plan, the big explosion shall be started from a gift na ibibigay ni Simon sa newlyweds. Ito ay isang bomba na maaaring sumabog anytime na mabuksan na ang regalo. So it will result into a big explosion na that will become a signal to the revolutionary troops to simultaneously attack all the government buildings in Manila. But the plan didn't happen successfully. So habang nagsa-celebrate ang mga tao sa loob ng reception venue, there's a guy outside the venue named Isagani. He was the rejected lover of the bride Paulita Gomez. So si Isagani ay ex or dating kasintahan ni Paulita Gomez. But mas pinili ni Paulita na magpakasal kay Juanito Pilaes dahil mas kaya siya nitong bigyan ng magandang buhay. And since alam ni Basilio na nalalapit na ang pagsabog, that's why he tells or warns Isagani to leave the place because the lamp will soon blow up. So base sa kagustuhan ni Isagani na mailigtas ang kanyang kasintahan, ang dating kasintahan na si Paulita Gomez, kung kaya't he rushes into the house, grabs the lamp and throws it into the water or rivers where it explodes. So that's the reason of the failed plan of the revolution. So after their failed attack, and when everyone knows the rebellion of Simon, so the law enforcers started to hunt Simon, but he managed to escape and found shelter in the house of Padre Florentino. So si Padre Florentino ay isang secular priest or Filipino priest. But still, the law enforcers managed to trace Simon. Subalit nang malaman ni Simon na malapit na siyang arestuhin ng mga Guardia Civil, so he takes poison so that he will not be caught alive. But before he died, he confessed his true identity to Padre Florentino. So nang malaman ni Padre Florentino na si Simon ay ang totoong pangalan ay si Crisostomo Ibarra, that's why the priest pray for him and hiningi niya ito ng tawad sa kanyang mga kasalanan. And I am John Philip Almero, your presenter. Thank you.
Noli and freely stolen. In Rizal's time, the Permanent Commission of Censorship recommended the absolute prohibition on the importation, reproduction, and circulation of the Noli. The copies of the Fili, on the other hand, were destroyed by customs in Manila upon shipment to the Philippines. The rare surviving copies of the novels were secretly purchased and, according to one friend of the family, had to be read in the smallest, most private room in the house, the toilet. And about 70 years after their publication, on December 8, 1961, the original manuscript of Noli and Fili and Mi Ultimo Adios were stolen from the National Library. The Mi Ultimo Adios, aka My Last Farewell, which he wrote on his execution, and the robbers was asking for 1.4 million pesos for the return of the original text. Then on December 15, 1961, they received the ransom notes for result of the manuscript, and yung ransom notes po is written using cutouts from magazines and newspaper po. And on February 1, 1962 naman po, the National Library of the Philippines received a package containing the broken and empty frame that once held Rizal's own Ultimo Dios, as a proof that a thief were not bluffing po. And the Secretary of Education in the Philippines, Alejandro Anding Roses, personally met with the thieves and after some various negotiations, had retrieved the documents without paying any single centavo po. Kasi po, si Alejandro Anding Roses po, he uses his charm, cleverness, humor to gain confidence to eventually convince Nilo Cabrido Idesa po. Si Nilo Cabrido Idesa po, siya po yung tip, siya po yung magnanakaw. And kinonvince po siya ni Alejandro Anding Roses na babaan po yung ransom from 1.4 to just 100,000 pesos po. And then, he was able to receive all the manuscript for free po. But, may hiniling po si Nilo po kay Anding Roses na government job and to help him get a full scholarship to study medicine at FEU po. But, sa kamang palad naman po is, trinay naman po siyang tulungan ni Alejandro, but wala po si Nilo nung mga paperworks na kinakailangan po. And during the negotiations naman po, one of the thieves related to Roses that on the night of the robbery, the Rizal manuscript suddenly become heavy as a caban of rice. Then, the thief thus exclaimed the manuscript must be holy or haunted, and one robber even claimed that he read Rizal's handwritten novels and described the feeling, ang sarap basahin, kinikilabutan ako. And nakakatawa naman pong isipin is, kasi po, yung mga magnanakaw po is, hindi naman po nila naiintindihan yung Spanish and baka yun na rin po yung naging dahilan, kaya upang makonsensya sila at mabulabog at iuli na lang po yung manuscript na ginawa ni Rizal.